it's interesting that you mentioned that, because dance is where I get one of my biggest sources of inspiration. In fact, I've discovered, I don't always work from models, but it's helpful to have them. This painting here of Melek Ta'us, which means the peacock angel, this is a very seminal image, and it is frankly world famous by now, because to put it very briefly, before I painted this image of him, there wasn't one. You know, there really just wasn't one. The culture that it comes from, Yazidi, and also later on, Anderson fairy tradition witchcraft, very obscure, secretive. There just wasn't anything to be had. So for me, my journey to create this work out of very little, it was an intense act of meditative application over a period of 2 years. But it really turned around when I discovered my model, and how I discovered him was not just the looks. It's not really just about looks. It's about the energy of a person. Mm-hmm. How do they move? You know, people who are martial artists or dancers or who have some other kind of physical discipline almost always make the best models, especially if they have a sense of how this activity of the body, and frankly of the emotions and the mind as well, connects with their spiritual journey, you know, and that makes like one of the best kinds of partnership there is.
So when you take an image like Melek Ta'us that hasn't been put down, I can hear some people say, well, that limits it, that's not my vision, but doesn't it kind of open it up to say you can envision? Yeah, in the case of something that has no precedent, yes, I would agree. And you know, interestingly, with this one particular one, because this is a very singular instance, it has a life that is unique and informative. I've never actually heard anybody say that. What I've heard them say more is this particular one, it's like, I never knew, but there he is. The question that you raise as it pertains to images that are more commonly understood. Right. Of the three that we have right here, the only one that would probably fit that category is this. This is the Yoruban Orisha, or goddess, Oshun, who's one of the 7 African powers, meaning one of the great ones, and she's the sweet lady. She's, if you want a really quick comparison, she's like the African Venus in more than one way. She's all about song, music, laughter, joy, art, dance. She is the sweet water, and she is the one who brings joy as well as skill to life. And of course, there are people who work with her in the Yoruba and the Santeria traditions and so forth, who have probably very clear ideas of what she looks like and so forth. And this isn't necessarily going to answer to theirs, and it doesn't have to. It's mine. I've interpreted different divinities from cultures around the world who have spoken to me. That's really how it works. I don't just, you know, sit down and say I'm going to do a whole pantheon. I actually have to get a message or some kind of indicator that I'm actually supposed to be doing this, because it's you know, a part of my life journey, or it's or for some other reason. You know, there's a mandate, a call of some kind. And I've done some images where I definitely know that the people who are not connecting with it are not connecting because it's not matching up to their expectations in some way. Like they've read exactly how it's supposed to be and so forth. Buddhist iconography is really big on that. Oh my goodness. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I haven't done very much at all with interpreting Buddhist figures. That's another important thing. When it comes to being physically grounded in a matrix, a pragmatic matrix for all of this very high-flown and etheric spiritual ideas and so forth, I always like to take nature either on a macrocosmic, microcosmic, or even just the apparent to the senses level. I think that the processes of nature teach us everything we need to know. Not just about making art or what we're doing, but like how human psychology works. If you sit with it and you pay attention to how things work, you know, we have this reflected in some of our proverbs. Like for instance, for each thing there is a season.
And that comes from a direct observation and relationship to nature. You know, you don't try to do a harvest in the winter or in the spring, right? You have to do it at its season, etc. That's very comparable to reaping the results or the reward of your actions at the right time. And that's important in this day and age of instant gratification and so forth. There's a lot of people who, you know, they put it out there and they want it right away, you know. And nature shows us it doesn't work that way.
Right.
You know, things have to ripen.
Yeah, there may
Yeah.
be test tube babies, but it still takes 9 months for the full gestation.
You gotta grow them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think I've run out of questions for this round.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, of course. It's been a joy and a pleasure.